Hey, my name is Kevin Johnson. I'm here with Mistaway Systems down in Houston. We manufacture automatic mosquito control systems. My talk is going to focus about how we migrated from a SQL database into using the fully managed Scylla Cloud product. You're going to learn how we leveraged the Scylla Cloud team to assist with our migration, and you're going to learn how we actually leverage the power of Scylla to enhance our apps and user experience. I hope you enjoy the talk, and thanks for checking it out.
So at Mistaway, we're mostly concerned with mosquitoes, whether that be the bugs or the brokers. So what is a Mistaway? A Mistaway, as you can see here on the left, is our bread and butter system. And what it does is it controls mosquitoes by automatically misting a botanical concentrate throughout your property. So it's installed in your yard, it mists automatically, you don't have to touch it. As you can see here on the right, there's a series of nozzles and tubing that actually disperse that mist. It's very fine, carries throughout the property, and it controls the mosquito life cycle from larva to adult. It's probably surprising to hear, but things can actually go wrong with these systems. They can go empty, sometimes unexpectedly. They could spring leaks if your landscaper comes and cuts a line. Therefore, the misting stops. It could also have a power loss if there's a strong storm or a surge. And the reason why that's important is because if the system's not misting and it's controlling mosquitoes, then you have dissatisfied customers. So about 4 or 5 years ago, my managers thought it would be a good idea to make this an IoT application, and so they did that. Really quickly showing here the current state of our application. We decided to go with a third-party vendor at that time. One thing I want to point out is that we don't actually sell the systems directly to the end user. We go through a dealer network that's kind of global. What I'm showing here on the left is our web application. This is used by our dealers to manage their fleets. This is one of our big dealers down in South Florida. He's got about 450 units connected to the iMistaway platform. As you can see here, it's a high-level view. Green's good, red's bad, black means it's not connected. And he can dive in, see each individual system, and run analysis and troubleshooting. As you see here on the right, that's our mobile app. That's what we give to our end users or homeowners. And that's something cool that they can take to their neighbor's house and show how they can mist their system remotely and control it, turn it on and off, and change the cycles. The real benefit in our mind is that the dealers are able to use this to provide better and more efficient service to the homeowner. In the past, they had to set up a regular scheduled truck roll every 30 days, every 60 days, or wait until they got an angry call from a customer who was getting assaulted by mosquitoes. So now with iMistaway, you only roll the truck when you need to, and you have prior knowledge of what the issue is. So that saves time and labor, and also saves the customer potential invoice. A little bit about IoT. Most people are probably familiar. But in the virtual world, our misting systems are actually nodes. And each node has about 70 data points called channels. In this example, the channel name is status, and the value is empty. This goes up to the cloud, where we ingest it, we evaluate it, get some rules, set some alarms, and then at the same time, we can react by sending an SMS or an email. Now, all of this activity I just described, we actually store in a database. And previously, it was in our vendor's SQL database. And this historical data is important for us to do troubleshooting and analytics. So now I want to move on and talk about our monster migration. Throughout the years, we had some success and some growing pains. But our third-party vendor changed their business model away from serving external customers to a more internal platform. And they gave us the option to take the latest offering of their platform, move it in-house, and manage it ourselves with little support. And we had to do all that within 3 months. So it was a pretty monster migration. As you can imagine, as the engineer at Mistaway, I was pretty overwhelmed. At that time, about a year ago, we had about 3,000 devices online, and that's increasing. And each of these are paid subscriptions as part of our business. So we can't have a huge lapse in service. Mistaway is a small company. We're about a dozen people. We work with a lot of contractors. We couldn't possibly manage every part of this platform because you just can't know everything. And to be honest with you guys, about 18 months ago, I didn't know anything about databases or containers or queues or APIs. I had just written a little firmware once, and I felt a little bit over my head. The scariest thing is that we had all these years of historical data in the SQL database that we needed to move into a new platform, and then also stream our current data as the platform is always live and have that captured in our new application. And also, I figured, hey, if we're moving to a new solution, it'd be really cool if we could utilize some of this time series data. So we took the philosophy of going with managed services. And the reason why we decided to do that is that we need the high performance of tools like Scylla, but we really don't want to have to manage anything. At the time, we were lucky to get in contact with Scylla and learn about their Scylla Cloud offering, which was kind of a new beta thing they were doing. So we figured, hey, we've got a time crunch. We got to get this thing solved. Let's check out these Scylla guys and see if they're legit. So to kind of spoil the story, we went with Scylla Cloud, and I kind of want to talk to you about the migration process. So it starts out with a detailed sizing review. And what I really want to point out here is that the Scylla team really took the time to understand what a Mistaway was, how it worked, and why it was important for this thing to be online. It's also optimized for our seasonal needs. Our business is very peaky. That means our traffic and throughput's very peaky, and our cluster is tuned to that. They also provided us an easy-to-digest pricing model, so they separated the cost of ownership of the cluster, as if we were to run it ourselves, against the value added that the Scylla team was provided. So it makes it a really easy convince your boss exercise. It's super easy to sign up and get the process started. They have a really cool web app that you can log into, couple clicks, couple minutes, and you can spin up a cluster where you want it, how you want it. They also provided a documented step-by-step procedure of the migration process, which was very helpful. And just a little anecdote, I was actually unexpectedly offline and unavailable when the actual migration happened. But the Scylla team took the initiative to reach out to the third-party vendor, coordinate with them, and make that happen. So we're actually able to migrate 2 years of our historical service data into our new Scylla cluster. And at the same time, we were live streaming from our devices into the new platform. So we had zero downtime, and for that, I think Scylla's #1. A little bit about our data model. Again, that data was in SQL. We had to completely redo the schema to match the Scylla architecture. So we came up with a couple of tables that supported most of our queries for our application. A couple ones I want to point out are alarms current and data points current. These two tables basically contain the current state of all of our systems. In my legacy platform, these are two things that you really couldn't do without getting up to go take a break or get coffee. Now with Scylla, we can actually do these full table scans. My boss loves to log in as a super admin, pull up the entire fleet, and run analysis and kind of see how the fleet is doing health-wise. So that's pretty cool. I would never let him do that in the legacy platform. My favorite table is data points history. This is basically keyed off of a certain node's ID, the channel that's being updated, and the actual date that this occurs. So by using that as a partition key, we get pretty even partitions throughout the cluster. And then we actually use the clustering key of timestamp because we essentially want to say, like, hey, what's the level of the misting system from now to 9 months ago, which would be kind of a seasonal report. So now that we're in love with Scylla Cloud, what's the relationship been like for the past year? Well, overall, it's been the philosophy I've taken is Scylla, just take the wheel, right? I want to have zero maintenance. I don't want to deal with repairs. I don't want to deal with compactions. I want you guys to handle that, and they have. I've got a dedicated Slack channel that I can go to. It's probably my favorite feature of Scylla Cloud. We've got this really clean web app. So every morning when I log into Datadog and log into Kibana to check logs, I can log into this and kind of see how the cluster responds to the actual effects of our platform. So this actually has been really educational for me as well. We have a dedicated Kevin. I'm not sure if he's here, but he's our account manager, and he's the one-stop shop for any issues. So overall, it's been kind of boring. It's low drama, it's low stress, and that's the way we need it to run our business. Over the past year, we've had 0 hours downtime on our cluster, so we've always been up, and we've submitted 0 support tickets. A little technicality there. I did put in a ticket to get help with these slides, so we're officially not at 0, but everything's been good so far. Again, my favorite feature of this is the dedicated Slack channel. You know, although we use a lot of managed services, whenever we have a question or support, we usually have to log into some portal, right? Fill out a form, submit a ticket, and you get an automatic email because you're in backlog now, and then, ooh, now you're in pending. Or you have to make a phone call, right? Go through a phone queue, leave a message. With Scylla, there's none of that. I can jump right into the Slack channel. I've got direct access to the pros. So whether I have a question, just a curiosity, or even like a really good joke, I can just jump in there and drop it in. So that gives us a lot of confidence in our cluster. So I want to talk a little bit about the power of Scylla. Like now that our application has been migrated to Scylla, we've actually been able to take advantage of some of those things. So again, now we own our own data center and our own platform, and we were just able to open up a peer connection to our cluster, so it was easily integrated into our solution. We do about 5,000 operations per second peak, which sounds like a lot to us. Based on the talks I've heard this past week, maybe not much. But even when that fluctuates, our cluster doesn't budge. And we got high availability kind of baked in. Our data is replicated across 3 nodes. Each node's in a different availability zone. So my data is always available when I need it. And again, since we went through that exercise of redesigning the schema, our queries are really fast. I'm not going to talk a lot of numbers or 99 percentiles, but what it equals is that when our users need to access the app and get their data, it's there instantaneously. Here's an example of something that we can do now that we weren't able to do in the past, which is basically draw these charts that contain tens of thousands of data points for a season of service as you load the page. It's just right away. Here, what I'm showing is the signal strength of a system between the system outside and the internet gateway in the home. As you can see, the strength of this signal was pretty good until about October 14th when it just dropped out, right? So you got to think about it. Our dealers are, they're technicians. They're not necessarily tech guys. They're outside with an iPad. If you've experienced this, it's hot. If the system's down, they're getting assaulted by mosquitoes. The dog's barking. The customer's over their shoulder. So even if I can draw a chart really fast, they don't necessarily want to have to sit there and interpret it. So what I can do now with Scylla is that each time a data point comes in, I can run a little function in the background over 90 days, over a year of data. Again, tens of thousands of data points. And some of you might call this a lambda, right? So I can basically look back at that data, do some quick calculations, and say, hey, if you see on the right, I'm just going to throw you an alarm. Your unit's offline, and we think it's because you probably just lost power. So what you can do is just contact the customer, have them unplug the system, plug it back in, right? Saves your truck roll, saves the customer an invoice, and it gets the missing system back up and running as quickly as possible. Something that we could not do in a legacy platform. It's kind of a wait and watch situation. Again, this is just showing off the speed of how we're able to draw charts. This is a service summary that a dealer would package as part of an end of season shutdown. This is something that you would have to do, for 400 units. If you have a big fleet, it could take you hours. Now it's instant. Take a screenshot, put it in your invoice. So just a couple of key takeaways from anyone who's considering Scylla Cloud, who needs the power of Scylla but doesn't really want to deal with the maintenance and upkeep, is you can focus on value creation, right? Focus on your application. Focus on creating value for your customers, the things that bring you revenue. And leave the DevOps to the pros. One big thing that was important for us as a small company is that we didn't have to staff up. So we didn't actually have to go hire and bring in the talent to help us run this cluster. And I'm not the PhD at this. I'm really not the PhD at anything. But because I had the Scylla team behind me, I was successful, and we're running our platform now. And the last thing that's really affected me personally is that there's just a lot less stress, a lot less anxiety in running this platform. Migrations are scary, right? You're trying to get your data across. You're trying to get your platform going. You got live paying customers that you don't want to upset. So it can be a little bit scary, but with Scylla Cloud handling your data, it takes a lot of the stress away and a lot of the anxiety.
You return just one row at the end. So to build